Well, this video is going to be a little bit unorthodox, and I'll explain why later. But some weeks ago, I had the honor of being an advanced reader for James Greene Jr.'s A Convenient Parallel Dimension: How Ghostbusters Slimed Us Forever. And I've been trying to find the spare time to shoot a video promoting it, telling you about it, telling you whether I think it's worth buying. And life keeps getting in my way, as you will see at the end of this. But anyway, one thing after another. Work things were taking up my time. Family things were taking up my time. My oldest son had to have an appendectomy last week. My youngest son is sick today. So I'm just going to sit in the car and tell you about it. And I'm sorry that the camera is wobbling like that. I'll try to, put it against the steering wheel. Maybe that'll be a little bit better. So, the book. The one drawback that I would really say this book has is it's that same linear progression that everybody seems to take when they tell the story. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I've seen it done and done and done. And it becomes a little bit by the numbers. Now, this book, it has the advantage of talking about the first film and the second film and possible sequel scripts, and then the third film and then the fourth film. And, those things I can understand the linear approach to the layout of the book. However, within each chapter or within each, epoch of time, I'd like to see a little more... Just once, I'd like to see a book that page 1 starts in media res with Bill Murray lying on the ground, refusing to do any work.
Well, I'm going to lie down on the floor if you're going to behave that way. And then you lie on the floor, and the longer you lie on the floor, the more ridiculous, it becomes.
Then roll the clock back and explain that, well, he and Ivan Reitman had worked together before on this movie, and this movie, and this movie, and now they're working together on this movie that Dan Aykroyd had written. So, it could be a little more non-linear in the telling. That's just me. That's a me thing. So take that with a grain of salt. In almost every case in this book by James Greene Jr., when it got to a topic that I knew, I went, oh, well, he's covered everything I knew, but he dug that up, and I didn't know that. And a couple of times where I thought I was going to be able to throw a flag on the play, it was like, oh, come on. A guy in an ape suit, that man's name is Bob Burns. I've met Bob Burns, come on. And then it's like he's talking about the original Filmation's Ghostbusters, and then in the next couple of paragraphs, he mentions Kathy Burns. I'm like, wait a minute, Kathy Burns is Bob's wife. And then it's this wonderful anecdote about her meeting Dan Aykroyd and mentioning that her husband had been in a show with the same title. And that's when you find out Bob Burns' name. And I'm like, okay, the reason he withheld it at the beginning was so the punchline of this story had more impact. It wasn't that he didn't know his name. It was the construct of a joke. Okay, that's pretty cool. So time and again, there were little things in there where I was like, I don't know if I... yeah, he got it. He put it in there. And of late, in a lot of these more recent documentaries, you're battling, one of my pet peeves, you're battling human memory and people remembering details wrong. And in a lot of the cases where there are conflicting sources on stuff, it seems like James Greene, deferred to the hard facts no matter what somebody had said in an interview. So I liked that approach rather than these documentaries that say, oh, yeah, the working title of the movie was this. No, it wasn't. It wasn't that. We can prove definitively it wasn't that. If you look at the evidence and don't just take somebody's recollection at face value. So I did like that he was looking at every possible version of a story, deciding which one was the most true or the best evidence, or, and telling it mainly from that point of view, but also saying, but then someone said this in an interview. So there, he gives you the info and some of the facets of these, little gems in there as well, which I liked that approach too. Got to the section on the scripts that were unproduced, and way more specific details than I'd ever heard about most of those. So that was pretty cool. I wish he would just send me copies of those scripts. But then getting into the 2016 film and Afterlife, those were a little less is out there about those movies, I feel, because they're so recent. So it was like, I've heard that quote before, but that may just be they're fresher in my memory. I can't tell. If you're looking for one of these books like you've seen before that's jam-packed with graphics, it's not going to be that. This is going to be a lot of text, like a couple of coffee table books that I bought recently about the making of Caddyshack and different things. It sort of reminded me of those in the way that it was primarily text and then maybe a section in the middle with some photos, or a section at the end with some photos, So it's that kind of a book. It's not a whole lot of graphics on every page kind of a book. It's a mostly text book. I enjoy those when things come along. So I really enjoyed this one piece where he talked about another possible inspiration for the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. I immediately stopped reading the digital file. I don't have a physical copy of this book yet. And I went to YouTube and I looked up the video and I watched the video and I'm like, well, that could be kind of coincidental. I mean, there could be multiple parodies of the Pillsbury Doughboy.
There's something you don't see every day, Chauncey.
And the guy said, there's something you don't see every day. Oh yeah, Dan Aykroyd saw this. Somebody saw this. That's clearly another inspiration for the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man scene in Ghostbusters 1984. How cool. Cartoon from the 70s. Who knew? So overall, yes, I'm very pleased with this book. Even the things that I already knew were presented in a way that maybe I hadn't seen before, or additional details had been dug up that I'd never looked for. I'm like, oh, hey, that's pretty neat right there. I like the way he did that. I did feel that one section at the end was going to definitely date the book. And I'm like, okay, historical context, I understand. That is why Afterlife got, delayed, but that was then. This is now. Why? It's almost, out of time already, because that's, yeah, guess what? Said Zach got sick today. Fixing to take his meds in the house. COVID has hit my house again. I've had it. Now Zach's got it. So, yeah, I guess the historical context of the COVID pandemic is still relevant to A Convenient Parallel Dimension, How Ghostbusters Slimed Us Forever by James Greene Jr. Coming out in bookstores soon, I think November. Run out there and get you a copy. Thanks for watching. And thank you, James, for thinking of me and getting me the digital file. And thanks to your publisher as well. Peace.